Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages and sizes, welcome to another set of D&D stories narrated by yours truly, Brian Von VA. Does everybody have a snack? Do you have something to drink? Please say yes, because we're in for another doozy. But before we begin, make sure to check out Riptovia. Links are in the description down below. Riptovia is literally our secondary channel where we post stories that are much like the ones here, except not really so many threads, more so one-off stories that you guys and gals out there create for us to read. So go check it out and then come back here. That being said, Dungeon Masters of Reddit, what is the most useless item you gave your party that they were still able to exploit? Part 1. Bagpipes of Invisibility. They grant invisibility as long as they're played. Silence is one hell of a spell. I gave my players a pig whistle. Once a day they could blow the whistle and summon a pig. I hadn't given too much thought about it, but they used it constantly. They would send pigs off to spring traps. They would have impromptu luau's to curry favor with peasants. They never had to worry about rations again. Pork for dinner! I thought it was just a useless throwaway item, but they sure proved me wrong. Good times. One time our DM gave us a rod of summon boat as a joke, except we rolled a nat 20 for the summon and got a whole ass galleon. The campaign quickly became pirate themed as we became privateers. Player here. Once upon a time I was playing a supernatural western game and we received a magic bullet early on that, when dropped onto the ground, will point in the direction of true north. We received this bullet in session 1 and promptly forgot it existed. We then went on a 2-year-long campaign of tracking down an evil time-traveling wizard with antics that included poisoning a bunch of rich people with ice cream, crashing a zeppelin, a player character going insane and trying to murder his way into presidency, fighting a train monster, then finally confronting the evil wizard in a pocket dimension. We were somehow woefully unprepared to fight the bathrobe-wearing wizard as he was immune to all forms of damage. We were at a loss as to what to do, until the wizard shouted that he can only be hurt by magic. We paused and looked at our inventories for a few minutes. Suddenly, my buddy shoves his character sheet in my face and points out the word magic bullet. I see where this is going. We then proceeded to shoot the boss in the face, killing him instantly. Our GM was reasonably upset since we were too stupid to figure out his puzzle fight and just cheesed the final boss of a 2-year campaign. But in the end, it was our most memorable climax to a campaign. The Jar of Endless Lard. I put it in as a joke and somehow they managed to set a forest in fire with a timed fuse. Also having them covering various body parts in said lard to set it in fire for extra damage wasn't good. Father of a DM here. During lockdown, our 24-year-old son was living at home, so he couldn't play with his usual crew. So we agreed to a Sunday morning family D&D session and actually quite enjoyed it. His mom was a cook who had a magic ladle that could produce any liquid. I asked if she could throw the contents. He said it would have a 5-meter range. He was expecting her to produce a healing soup, and he had to Google hydrofluoric acid when I said she could lob that at some kobolds. One of the players had gotten married to a pretty young NPC who wasn't an adventurer, so I gave him a ring of conjugal visits that would transport him to his wife for an hour, then send him back to the adventuring group. The ring worked twice a week and was intended as a joke. When the party was beaten up from a hard combat, he used the ring and asked his wife where the nearest temple was, then bought healing potions from the local cleric. Soon, this became a thing. Cure disease, healing, whatever. The ring became this guy's quick trip to the pharmacy, although he always found a few moments for a quickie with his wife, mwah. Eventually, he woke up the cleric at 3 a.m. to buy more potions, so I had the cleric throw a fit and yell at him to never come back. Player went back anyway, and the next time there was a bouncer at the temple door telling him to get lost. Maybe not exactly what you were looking for, but I've been looking for an excuse to tell this story. I had a party of wizard, ranger, druid, summoner, and barbarian back in Pathfinder 1st edition. All of the party members except for the barbarian had some kind of pet, be it an animal companion, familiar, or just a menagerie of animals the druid accumulated. A few sessions in, and my barbarian sends me a text while the party is setting up camp. The barbarian volunteers to take a watch, and the next morning the rest of the party wakes up to the barbarian's new pet, Brock the Rock. Brock was a stone with eyes and a mouth crudely carved into him. Brock goes on adventures with the party and is mostly forgotten about until a premature fight with that arc's end boss. The boss wipes the floor with the party, leaving everyone unconscious, except the barbarian who has single-digit HP. Not wanting to TPK, and with the boss in surprisingly worse shape than I expected, I have him taunt the barbarian and start to fly away. "Brock is going to take his attack," the barbarian says, throwing his pet with all his might. Crit. Max damage on the roll, boss drops to -1 HP, and face plants at the barbarian's feet for the coup de grace, also performed by Brock to finish what he started. And that's how our party's pet rock gained a temporary flight speed of 40 feet and favored enemy, verbose sorcerers. We had a rock that if you were knocked out with it, you were completely invulnerable while unconscious. You had to successfully hit yourself or whoever and take damage from being knocked unconscious from a rock to the skull. That rock caused so much chaos, and death, and life, and permanent head trauma to NPCs who we were trying to rescue. I gave them a folding boat. Say a magic word and the small shoebox magically expands into a boat. Not 5 minutes later, IRL, the f***ing rogue has thrown this box from the roof and said the magic word, creating the only instance of 20 dice rolls I've ever had to do. I don't know about raw rules as written or rye rules as intended if this is allowed, but damn it, throwing a boat at people is too damn fun to not allow it. I created an NPC werewolf character that was supposed to be a major villain in the campaign and stalk the players. It was a higher level than the PCs, so the idea was that they would need to flee every encounter and take measures to avoid being followed. Having someone on their tail constantly tracking them that could and would actually kill them was supposed to inject a sense of urgency into the game. On the first encounter, the werewolf was shown methodically slaying a large group of town guards and a high-ranking paladin. The characters were around level 5 or so. The NPC would probably be CR 12 and would scale as they leveled. They interrupted the combat, and the idea was that they would attempt to fight the werewolf, who didn't consider them a threat initially and so wouldn't just murder the whole party, see it killing a high-level character and go, "Oh shit, we need to run from it," while it slaughtered the rest of the guards. So at first, they rush in to help and attack the werewolf, doing little damage because they don't have silver weapons, and I gave this particular NPC a regeneration ability only stopped by silver. I have the werewolf attack one of the players with a secondary bite attack, which should put them to fairly low health without killing them outright. That player pauses for a moment, and then asks if he can try to block the attack with his hand. I'm not sure what he's getting at, but I humor him and say he can do that with a DC 10 dexterity check, although it won't affect what kind of damage he takes. He succeeds, and then asks if he can jam his hand into the werewolf's mouth. I say, sure, but he's probably going to bite it off, and you'll need a new hand. He says, even better. I describe the werewolf doing so. The rest of the combat continues until the player's turn, who seems undisturbed by the loss of a hand. On his turn, he says, I activate Qual's feather token to make a tree. This token is a magic one-time use item that creates a 5-foot diameter, 40-foot high tree. It's a handy utility item that our play group was fond of. Previously, we'd used it to do things from just making bridges and crossing walls, to providing a druid with a way to use a particular spell in a plantless area that requires trees. It didn't seem to have much use here. I ask him where on the board he's activating it. He points at the werewolf. I say that the most that it's going to do is knock the werewolf prone, and he gets a fairly easy save to prevent that. He smiles. No, it's in the werewolf. What? How? I was holding it when he ate my hand. Oh, this werewolf, this is such a tricky move. Me and the rest of the party are kind of silent for a second. I'm trying to think of a valid reason why this won't work. I fail. The werewolf now has a 5-foot wide tree growing out of him. The fact that he has regeneration doesn't particularly help when little bits of him are plastered on walls 20 feet away. The entire party celebrated, and they got a reward from the town and an ally in the paladin who was supposed to be dead. I had to make a new NPC. Clever players are awesome, and that was amazing. I gave the party a tiny bag of holding made of human skin. I don't remember why. They were trapped in a house fighting a zombie horde, and they used the skin bag. Turned it into a sort of Molotov bomb. Used a spell to have it fly over the zombies, who followed the human skin away to be blown up. It was a 45-minute saga to get to that point, and it was easily the funniest and most creative moment I've seen from the DM side. Not a DM, but my friend is, and he told me about a sword he gave the party. He called it the normal sword. When his players asked if there was anything special about it, all he would say is, "It's just a normal sword." In practice, it was so normal that it would negate all magic. His party never figured that out though. Kinda clever. Not a DM, but the last campaign I was in, the DM gave us a regenerative oasis that only appears to people that need it. The party was messing around with throwing bones in it and bringing the animals they belong to back to life. One of the other players had the thought to throw the hat of the deceased king into the water and brought the king back to life because of a single hair. The DM hadn't even considered that possibility because the session was supposed to be our beach episode. Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here, checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and to ring that bell so you can get notified whenever we post or go live. And of course, if you want stories that are more singular in nature and with a broader genre of D&D behind it, such as scary stories, funny stories, happy stories, sad stories, head on over to our secondary channel, Riptovia, and give us a subscribe on there too. Links are in the description below. As always, if you have a story that you'd like to share with us, make sure to head on over to r/MrRipper and leave it in there in an existing thread or one that you make yourself. Using a help action, you're always welcome to come say hi to me, Brian Von VA, on Twitch and on YouTube, where I do a very, very broad variety of things. And as always, I try to end things on a positive note, and today is no different. Today, I just wanted to say one thing. We can't control the actions of others, nor should we even strive to. Worrying about it is obviously something that we're going to do, yeah. We're always worried about our neighbors, or our friends, or our loved ones, blah, 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 and what they might do or how they might react to things. But if we focus primarily on how we act and react, the world starts to brighten up a little bit. Because honestly, yeah, maybe your neighbor won't wear a mask. Maybe your ex-girlfriend will get really angry about something. Maybe your best friend in the whole wide world will literally shut you down tomorrow because you failed to come into work on time. None of that matters. All that matters is how you act and interact and react with everything around you. Be sure to be positive, kind, and treat others the way you want to be treated. And everyone can do that. Do it in the comments all the time. You guys always talk to each other in the comments, and you guys are always super nice and super positive to everyone, regardless of what they say or do. And I love each and every one of you for it. So remember, you can't control others, but you can always control yourself. All the love, be safe, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.